All right, everybody, welcome back to the shop. In today's video, I'm going over one of the, I'm gonna say, most requested things that I do here in the shop, especially when I'm building furniture or cabinets, built-ins, etc. Because that's what I do a lot of, and I always get the same question. And I have a video on this already, but today I'm gonna be showing you my process of breaking down sheet goods, mainly plywood. You've seen me break down sheets of melamine and plywood before for closet built-ins. A couple of years ago in my old shop, which was in the basement, I showed you how to break down plywood, and that was for cabinet built-ins that I was doing in a bedroom. The only difference is going to be today, I'm going to show you a little bit of an easier process now that I have more room and I'm back to having dedicated table saw, which a couple of years ago when I did this video, breaking down plywood, and you can go back on the channel and see it, it's in a playlist for the cabinet making, breaking down all the sheet goods and stuff. What I did was break everything down with the track saw, and then use parallel guides, which you can still use to do this. You can use the parallel guides to break everything down, and you can forget about having a table saw at all, which at that time, I didn't have a table saw. So I only had a job site saw, and I'd rather have used the track saw to break everything down with the parallel guides. Well, that's not the issue anymore. Now that I have a dedicated cabinet saw here in the shop, it's much easier to break down plywood. So I'm going to be going over that real quick today. I'm going to show you my process, make it easy for you, show you how I do it since I've gotten a bunch of requests for it. All right, let's get started. Okay, so in this corner of the shop right here is where I keep all my sheet goods. I have all my plywood and melamine stacked up in the corner, standing up, because it takes up the least amount of room, doesn't get in my way. You can see I have my sustainers in front of it, so I'm just going to have to roll those out of the way. I have these on the sys carts, I think they're called, so I just roll those out of the way, which doesn't take much to do. These are great for if you're going out on installs and doing jobs in people's homes, clients' houses. That's what I do a lot after I build all the cabinets. So they have these really great, synthetic rubber wheels on them that don't mar up any flooring, and they just make wheeling these things around much easier. A lot of times I'll take almost everything. All of these sustainers will come with me on a job. I have everything in here that I need. Rolling these around and not having to carry some heavy toolboxes, it makes a world of a difference. Okay, so you can see here I got my 1/4-inch pieces off to the side. I'm going to be going with the full sheets here, and that's what everybody wants to see, obviously. I'm going to show you some good techniques also for carrying these heavy 4x8 sheets. So what I'm going to be using is this. This is a plywood carrying handle. This thing right here, I'm going to get closer so you can see it. I'll put the link for this. This thing is awesome. So basically what it does is you put this over the sheet of plywood, and as you lift it, this piece kind of like sandwiches down on the plywood. It cinches down and really holds it in place really well. And it just, you lift from your legs so that you're not bending over with your back and lifting and carrying everything and hurting your shoulders. So the only real difficult part here when you're taking the sheet down from this standing position, I'm going to pivot it on one corner like this, and then I'm going to start to walk it down, and I'm going to walk my hands down the piece as I go, and then I'm going to rest it right there on my knee for a second, and then lower it down. Now I'm going to take my plywood gripper that is well within my reach. I'm going to put it right over the plywood, and I'm going to just kind of eyeball the center right here, and that looks pretty good to me right there. That's close enough. So you want to get a balance. You don't want this thing tipping backwards or forwards. And then you're going to just, as you lift up on the handle, this thing really grabs the plywood, and then you're just going to get under it, just like this. Use your legs, stand straight up, and then just walk over to where you're going to cut the plywood. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. This is the STM1800. This is a Festool table. It's now readily available pretty much everywhere. I'll link this also in the description. But it has locking wheels on it. So what I do is I position the wheels just like that, and I lock them down. Because now what I want to do is turn these little tabs up. There's these little tabs right here that hold the plywood. And I'll show you some more leverage techniques here. And before I flip this over, I have these extra pieces set up over here. Those actually go on here. This extends, and you can actually take these pieces right here, and you can put them here, snap them in, and then you have the same thing on this side. But I found that when I'm cutting the plywood, these actually get in your way. So what I do is, since you don't really need these, they're great if you're using it as an assembly table because it gives you a nice wide area, but if you're not using them at the time, just leave those in. Those are the main points to keep in play. I'm using my plywood gripper. I'm just gonna walk over here and I'm gonna drop it on those little hooks. I'm gonna use this, it's kind of in the center. I'm gonna line that up with the, kind of with the center of the table. Doesn't have to be perfect because you could always readjust it. And I just drop it back like that. Now I'm gonna grab the table from here, and I like to put my foot here, even though the locks are on, and I'm gonna lean back and just pull this with me, and then drop it right down. Now, I'm gonna take the plywood and move it right here to the edge of that piece, and now we're ready to start cutting and breaking this down with the track saw. I got my shop plans on the cuts I need to make. My track saw and my dust extractor is sitting right behind me. Basically what I'm gonna do is, since I need 509 millimeter sides on these nightstands, what I'm gonna do is oversize it so that I can make a cut and then bring that straight edge that I make, that nice, clean, crisp edge, over to the table saw fence and finish the rip and get rid of this factory edge over here. So once again, I need sides to be 509 millimeters wide, and that's accounting also for edge banding and things like that. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of going 509, because if I cut it at 509, then I have no meat left to cut off to clean up the other edge on the table saw. So what I'm gonna do is go 514. That gives me the 5 millimeters of waste on this side that I can cut off at the table saw. Okay, so I went 514 here. I make a mark, come down to this side, go 514. Just put my guide rail on those marks. So now what I can do, if I don't need any more pieces cut to that size, I can just take this and move it out of the way, or I could leave it on the table here, and I could work on that side by coming around and using this now as my reference edge to mark off a different measurement. So what I'm gonna do here is, I know this is the factory edge, put a little arrow here at the top. I know that I've established a straight line there, and this is now 514 millimeters. I can take this and bring it over to the table saw, and I can set the fence to 509 and make my cut and have my perfect parallel rip. And then I can start my cross cuts. So now, something that is really amazing that I haven't had the privilege of in my other shop is being able to roll the plywood around to the areas I need to work in. So now I need to break these down a little bit further on the table saw to their final dimensions of their width. I'm able to roll this over here. I can actually get my track out of the way. So I don't need the track right now anymore because I'm done breaking down this sheet. So what I like to do is just hang it up right here on a nail. If you have a high ceiling, then it's great, because this is almost 10 feet. Gets it out of the way, keeps it up off the floor. A lot of people put them on the garage doors. They have those holders. All right, so I need to cut these to 509. So just gonna set up my table saw to 509. Now I like to get it right on the mark, but then I always double check, because I can never trust the sight glass on there, because sometimes it messes with your eyes. I mean, it is just plastic. So okay, I'm dead on at 509. So I'm locked in. I have my stock guides set up. I have the blade height raised just enough to cut through the plywood. I only like to have 4 teeth above the plywood or whatever material I'm cutting, and you know, that will keep enough of the blade above to make a nice clean cut, but it will also keep enough of the blade buried in the wood to keep your fingers away from the top. This piece, I have this marked. My straight edge is on this side, so that's gonna be my reference. I want that up against the fence. I'm gonna set this one on top of the other. I have 2 good cuts on that one. So here's another trick that can help you out, and I posted this on Instagram. If you set up a table roughly the same height as your table saw, you can use that to cheat and take some of the weight off of the piece, because these pieces get heavy. If you're lifting, you know, 15 to 20 of these a day, cutting to make cabinets, sometimes more. Sometimes I'm ripping down 25, 30 sheets of plywood for a full kitchen. It gets tiring. This is a good way to take some of the weight off, save you back a little bit. Okay, let's get the dust collection going. Okay, so the last part of the operation here for cutting the plywood, breaking it down, cutting it to the final dimensions, is now you have both sides ripped, they're parallel. You have to make 90 degrees for your lengths of your piece. You gotta start off with a crisp 90-degree edge. So what I've chosen to do, you can do this on the MFT3 system with the track saw, which I've done in the past a million times, but I also now have a sliding table attachment for cross-cutting. So what I like to do is use this so that I can also use my fence as a stop block, because this fence actually moves back, and I'll show you how I don't get the piece trapped in there by letting the fence slide back. I'll show you that in a second. First thing I need to do is figure out the length of the pieces I need. I need 4 pieces at 609 millimeters. 609, lock it down. And now I'm going to loosen the fence. I'm going to pull this back until I'm just in front of the blade where the piece can't get trapped between the fence and the blade. Because you never want to cross-cut a piece that's longer than it is wide, because it will get trapped in here and the piece will shift and it will cause a kickback. It's very dangerous. So now what I'm going to do is also open this up to get more support, because the pieces are rather long. Open that up all the way. Now, I told you I want to establish a straight 90-degree edge on the leading edge first before I butt it up into the fence as the stop block. So I'm just going to bring my piece over, slide it onto the table here. Now, roughly in this area right here is where we're going to establish our straight edge, our 90-degree edge from our straight reference edge. But being that the piece is kind of heavy and unwieldy right now, I'm going to back it up against the fence so that it's perfect. And then I'm gonna push it out to cut off just maybe a couple of millimeters, right about there. Then I'm gonna move in my hold down, tighten this up. Okay, now that's holding it, it's supported, and it's ready for cross-cutting action. So there's one more piece of the puzzle here for breaking down the plywood, and what I like to do, you can really utilize the cross-cutting table by setting a stop block on this side, and then you can run it through the whole way here without using the fence, because you have a stop block here. Okay, so I have my pieces of plywood cut. I still have some more to break down, but I'm giving you guys, the rough idea of how to do it, make it easier for yourself. Now, when you have a piece that's rather long, like I did, it's the full 8-foot length. A lot of times when I'm not, in such a rush, I'll drop it onto the MFT3, bring the rail down, and I'll square up the first edge. Then I'll run it over to the table saw and finish cross-cutting all the pieces there. If the piece is, if it needs really long cross-cuts, longer than the amount I can get on the sliding cross-cut attachment, then I'll do the whole thing with the stop block on the MFT3. And you can see that in the other video also, because I didn't have the table saw then. I had just the MFT3s set up and I was cutting them all on there. After you're done, after you make the first cut, you always want to check square just to make sure that you're not wasting your time continuing to cut and wasting material. So I needed to cut this to 609 in length. I got 609 there, and I got 609 there. But the real way that you've got to check this is corner to corner on the diagonal, because you can get a really good measurement there. So I got 792 to this corner. Now on the same side, I hit that corner on the diagonal. Make sure you're getting it right in the point. And I'm dead on at 792 right there in this corner. So I know this panel is perfectly square, and my edges are parallel, 509, 509. So these are ready to be put together as a carcass for the nightstand. I have some other pieces there that I got to cut to make the full box, but at least I know that when I put everything together, all the pieces are square, then the box is going to be square, and it's just going to make everything easier down the line. I will be putting a link to all the tools in the description box below, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you hit the picture of a notification bell. It's going to notify you every time I upload a new video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. All right, I'll see you next time.